do you feel like after Saturday Night Fever, did you see it? Did you go, oh wow, this is it.
That was the blueprint.
I'm going to be a major star. Like I'm here. Like now that I feel I've got an opportunity to really put my talent on display.
Yes.
I'm going to be the next biggest movie star that this town will see.
I did for this reason. The second indication, if you will, of having a solidity in the movie industry was a director called Terrence Malick, and he directed very important films in the 70s. And he wanted me for a film called Days of Heaven. And I screen tested for it right after Carrie and before Boy in the Plastic Bubble. And I got the role, and I couldn't do it because Wolper and Eisner wouldn't let me out of Cotter. But it was such a significant role, and Richard Gere ended up doing it, which ended up a theme where he did many roles I didn't do, but that was another last detail opportunity, like the Nicholson, the second time. So between the last detail and Days of Heaven, I really got the idea that the Force wanted me to be a film actor. So by the time I got the Saturday Night Fever opportunity, I said, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to do everything I can to make this a authentic, great performance.
Well, I mean, that's kind of insane though for you to see the trajectory of those that ended up taking the parts that you didn't get, and what that then went on and meant for those, for those actors.
Oh yeah.
So
no,
when you
I take responsibility for Richard and Tom Hanks. There's enough for everybody. Arts aren't, shouldn't be hoarded. I was the role in the Hanks film called Splash was written for me.
The Mermaid.
The Mermaid.
Yeah.
So but then we wouldn't have Tom Hanks. So let's have Tom Hanks. You see what I mean?
So what is the relationship of the actors at that time? Like, you're mentioning these massive names, which all at the same time are young, ambitious, driven, and all looking for their opportunities. And you guys naturally, you're bumping heads constantly because you're always up for the same things that are supposed to be the biggest things.
Okay, and this is the irony of it, or interesting part of it, I should say. There was very few of us.
I know.
Now, there's a ton of people competing. It's much more difficult to establish yourself in any aspect, music, movies. It's easier and it's more difficult, depending on how your avenue is. But it was just Richard Gere, myself, Treat Williams, up for most parts. So if I didn't get it, one of those guys would get it.
Where was Tom at that time?
And then Tom was a few years later.
Yeah.
So maybe by 81 or 2, Tom came into the scene. So then it was Tom. So it was Richard, Treat, myself, and Tom. And those roles would get interchangeable, do you see? Depending on what was happening. So in some ways, I mean, in Vegas, what's a 1 out of 4 chance? You know what I mean? It was a good...
Yeah, your odds aren't bad.
Yes,
You're playing with good odds based on the talent that's known to be the major talent in town at that time. I totally understand.
And we were a new generation, because the generation right before me was the Stallone, De Niro, Pacino generation. And then I was the beginning of that next generation, which included myself and Tom Hanks and Richard and Treat and that group.
Where's Denzel at this time?
He came a few years later. Mel Gibson was around the mid 80s or early 80s. So Denzel and Denzel's were the same age, and Mel were a little later.
That's insane. I love this is why I love this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting when you really dive into the mind of the person that was operating back then.
Yeah,
right?
and if I were you, I'd be asking the same question. If I had the luxury in my day of interviewing Cagney or someone else, I would be asking these very same questions, because I love the chronology of a life and of a career, and to find out what was real to that person and what wasn't. And it's really, I'm very impressed that you even want to ask these questions.
If you don't take advantage of your opportunity to be a sponge and soak up information, I think you're wasting the time of these
Absolutely.
valuable relationships.
And that's why you're so successful, because you get
Thank you.
that.
Thank you.
I think it's very important.